This is the fifth episode of Allocation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul here with my wife, Diane, Reverend David Paul, and Billy, and I'm running tonight, and you don't have my seat, sorry. And tonight we're going to continue our study of the Evolution of Human Government, paper 70, and we're on section 8, and that starts on page 792.5. And let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Rodney, would you like to pray for us to start out tonight?
Sure, Roger. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful and happy that we have the time to come together tonight to study this great revelation, especially this paper on the evolution of human government. And we pray now, Father, for insight into the meanings that we read here so that we can retain this information and we'll be able to pass it on to others. And in all things, we will be done. Father, amen.
Amen. Rodney, go ahead and take that first section.
All right. Okay, social classes. The mental and physical inequality of human beings ensures that social classes will create. Only worlds without social strata are the most primitive and the most advanced. A dawning civilization has not yet begun the differentiation of social levels, while a world settled with light and life has largely affected these divisions. These divisions of mankind, which are so characteristic of all intermediate evolutionary stages.
Okay, so your entry book states earlier that we're not all created exactly equal. Some of us have higher mental and physical abilities and some lower. And that's what they're talking about, these physical inequalities of mental and physical inequalities of human beings, right? And because of that, it automatically kicks us into these social statuses, right? Let's see if I can get this behind me. And this stays the same pretty much until we get into the age of light and life, basically. And that's what it's talking about here. Let's keep going. Diane, would you take the next one?
As society emerged from savagery to barbarianism, its human components tended to become grouped in classes for the following general reasons.
Go ahead, Dick.
Okay. 1. Natural. Contact, kinship, and marriage. The first social distinctions were based on sex, age, and blood. Kinship to the chief.
Right? That's cool. I want to go back on the paragraph. Notice here it says society emerged from savagery to barbarianism. You see that?
Yeah, that was. I thought of them as being the same.
Yeah. So we came from savages to barbarians, and we're still pretty much barbarians. You know,
We're slightly more.
Yeah, not by a whole lot though.
I would say individuals, and they're probably more individuals.
Yeah.
Than not.
Too personal. Hang on. Okay. All right, personal. The recognition of ability, endurance, skill, and fortitude, soon followed by the recognition of language mastery, knowledge, and general intelligence.
Ooh.
Okay. Billy, can you take the next one, please?
3. Chance. War and immigration resulted in the separating of human groups. Class evolution was powerfully influenced by conquest. The relation of the victor to the vanquished, while slavery brought about the first general division of society into free and bond.
And so war and immigration caused these things. You know, as people were conquered, they didn't stay the same any longer, right? All right. Rodney.
For economic, rich and poor. Wealth in the possession of slaves was a genetic basis for one class of society.
So those who had owned slaves were considered a higher class back then. All right.
5. Geographic. Classes arose consequent upon urban or rural settlement. City and country have respectively contributed to the differentiation of the herder, agriculturist, and the trader-industrialist, with their divergent viewpoints and reactions.
Social. 6. Social. Classes have gradually formed according to popular estimate of the social worth of different groups. Among the earliest divisions of this sort were the demarcations between priests-teachers, rural warriors, capitalist traders, common laborers, and slaves. Slaves could never become a capitalist, though sometimes the wage earner could elect to join the capitalist ranks. So if you were a slave, you were on the lower end of the totem pole, apparently.
7. Vocational. As vocations multiplied, they tended to establish castes and guilds. Workers divided into 3 groups: the professional classes, including the medicine men, then the skilled workers, followed by the unskilled laborers.
It's kind of funny they consider the medicine men skilled, right?
Well, like professional classes.
Yeah. Rodney.
Hey, religion. They really thought to produce their own classes within the clans and tribes. And the
Piety.
piety, mysticism of the priests long perpetuated them as a separate social group.
So they walked around and acted pious so that they automatically were grouped in a different social group, right? People thought they had something special.
And they still do. They still like treat people like that.
Yeah.
Think of them that way, which is not fair. 9. Racial. The presence of 2 or more races within a given nation or territorial unit usually produces color castes. The original caste system of India was based on color, as was that of early Egypt.
All right. Millie, would you take the next one? Just lost my.
10. Age, youth, and maturity. Among the tribes, the boy remained under the watch care of his father as long as the father lived, while the girl was left in her care of her mother until married.
Rodney.
Flexible and shifting social classes are indispensable to an evolving civilization. But when class becomes caste and social levels petrify, the enhancement of social stability is purchased by
Diminishment.
a personal initiative. Social caste solves the problem of finding one's place in industry, but it also sharply curtails individual development and virtually prevents social cooperation.
Classes in society having naturally formed will persist until man gradually achieves their evolutionary obliteration through intelligent manipulation of the biologic, intellectual, and spiritual resources of a progressing civilization, such as
1. Biologic renovation of the racial stocks, the selective elimination of the inferior human strains. We were talking about this the other night. This will tend to eradicate many mortal inequalities. Now, an interesting thing is the other night me and Diane were watching Morgan Freeman in Into the Wormhole, I think it was called. Is that correct? And they were talking about manipulating DNA, certain parts of human DNA, to get rid of certain tendencies and that sort of thing. But it's interesting, but during this process, I looked at Diane and I said, that's how Adam and Eve would have gotten rid of the what? the inferior human strains through this manipulation of the DNA. I mean, that's what they would have taught us to do later on if they would have still been here. But since they did not, it's taken up to this time for human beings to get to that point where they have the knowledge to even consider doing something like that, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting. But it's kind of interesting that we've gotten to the point where we have discovered a way to actually do those sort of things, right?
That's an excellent program, by the way, the series.
Yeah, it is a very good series.
Very,
It
very.
asks some very interesting questions.
What is it again?
It's through the wormhole with Morgan Freeman, and he is just excellent, and he's the executive producer of that show.
They take all sorts of topics and just
Yeah.
ask questions about different things, and kind of takes a snapshot look of specific items and ask where we're going with these things, and that type of thing. It's interesting. You know? He doesn't come up with solutions for things. He just brings everything out so that we can consider it and think about it.
Yeah, and it's just it's absolutely excellent. It's really top of the line presentation on actually into the book.
Yeah.
It verifies and complements everything that we've been reading and
Yeah.
studying. All the
Am I
different.
up there? Did you just?
Sorry, I was talking.
Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and read it.
Okay.
2, educational training of the increased brain power which will arise out of such biologic improvements. So as we improve our biology or our DNA of our human being, will become more intelligent. And we can see that even though we haven't actually started manipulating our DNA yet, but we can see the difference between the children of this age compared to the last age. Because children are getting intelligent much, much earlier. And you know, you can see that in their coursework and their schools and their computers abilities and all sorts of things. So. All right. Millie, would you take the next one?
Religious quickening of the feelings of mortal kinship and brotherhood.
That's the brotherhood of man that Jesus kept talking about, right? Right?
But these measures can bear their fruits only in the distant millenniums of the future, although much social improvement will immediately result from the intelligent, wise, and patient manipulation of these acceleration factors of cultural progress. Religion is the mighty lever that lifts civilization from chaos, but it is powerless apart from the fulcrum of sound and normal mind resting securely on sound and normal heredity.
So we have to have normal minds and those willing to learn about things like religion to be able to go forward, right? So we have to have the vessel. To fill up the vessel has to be prepared. And to do that, we have to have a sound and normal heredity, right? And that's what we're talking about here.
9.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just making a comment. It's a long way away.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it is, but you know, just in the last 50 years, you can really
You can see the progress.
progress is
Yeah.
intensified.
Yeah. You have to be aware of what's going on around you, and you have to look for the differences in the progress. So they don't just jump out at you normally.
9. Human rights. Nature confers no rights on man, only life and a world in which to live in. Nature does not even confer the right to live, as might be deduced by considering what would likely happen if an unarmed man met a hungry tiger face to face in the primitive forest. Society's prime gift to man is security.
How is that? By living together and associating with each other gives us strength, and that gives us what? Security, right? Gradually, society asserts its rights, and at the present time, they are. Millie, would you take these 5, please?
1. The assurance of food supply. 2. Military defense, security through preparedness. And 3. Internal peace preservation, prevention of personal violence and social disorder. 4. Sex control, marriage, the family institution. 5 is property, the right to own. 6 is fostering of individual and group competition. 7, provision for educating and training youth. 8, promotion of trade and commerce, industrial development. 9, improvement of labor conditions and rewards. 10, the guarantee of the freedom of religious practices to the end that all of these other social activities may be exalted by becoming spiritually motivated.
You know, it's kind of interesting that the last one is the one that Jesus put out there as the most important, right? The guarantee of religious freedom and practice, becoming spiritually motivated. To Jesus, the only life worthwhile was what? The spiritual life. All others follows a good spiritual life. So if you're not living a good spiritual life, you're missing out on the purpose of living, right? All right. Roger, would you take the next one?
Okay. When whites were old, beyond knowledge of origin, they are often called natural rights. But human rights are not really natural. They are entirely social. They are relative and ever-changing, being no more than the rules of the game, recognized adjustments of relations governing the ever-changing phenomena of human competition.
So all these rights that we try to claim and say we have are really just rights that are given to us by society. That's it. Right? There are no real human rights, which is an interesting concept.
What may be regarded as right in one age may not be so regarded in another. The survival of large numbers of defectives and degenerates is not because they have any natural right thus to encumber 20th century civilization, but simply because the society of the age, the Moors, thus decrees.
It's interesting that they state here that we have large defectives and degenerates. Do you see that?
Yeah, but that was 100 years ago.
No, it's true today, though, Rodney. We have not cleaned up the degenerates.
I know.
If you look at the streets of the city, you'll see that right away.
Oh,
You know, and we still have a lot of barbarianism. The barbarianism that's out there, still out there today. You know, and it's going to take probably hundreds, even thousands of years to clean it all out. You know?
mhm.
Few human rights were recognized in the early Middle Ages. Then every man,
European Middle Ages.
oh, I'm sorry, European Middle Ages. Then every man belonged to someone else, and the rights were only privileges or favors granted by state or church. And the revolt from this era was equally erroneous in that it led to the belief that all men are born equal. We put that in our Constitution, didn't we?
Yeah.
We truly believed it. Okay. Millie?
The weak and the inferior have always contended for equal rights. They have always insisted that the state compel the strong and superior to supply their wants and otherwise make good those deficiencies which all too often are the natural result of their own indifference and indolence.
The lack of wanting to improve themselves, right?
That's such a political statement right now.
Yes, it is.
Very potent.
But this equality idea, this child civilization, that is not found in nature. Even culture itself demonstrates conclusively the inherent inequality of men by their very unequal capacity therefore. The sudden and non-evolutionary realization of supposed natural equality would quickly throw civilized man back to crude usages of primitive aging. Society cannot offer equal rights to all, but it can promise to enforce the varying rights of each with fairness and equity. It is the business and duty of society to provide the child a future with a fair and equal, people pursue self-maintenance, participate in self-preparation, all at the same time enjoying some measure of self-gratification, the sum of all three consisting human happiness.
Constituting.
Constitute human happiness.
There we go.
That's cool.
That is good. All right.
10. Evolution of justice. Natural justice is a man-made theory. It is not a reality. In nature, justice is purely theoretic, wholly a fiction. Nature provides but one kind of justice, inevitable conformity of results to causes.
So that's all there is, for results to causes. There is no justice in this world per se.
Makes you feel real secure, doesn't
It does, doesn't it? Now, if you're looking for justice in this world, you're looking for the wrong thing, right? It's all our perception of man-made justice or man-made theory of justice. Justice as conceived by man means getting one's right and has therefore been a matter of progressive evolution. The concept of justice may well be constituted of a spirit-endowed mind, but it does not spring full-fledged into existence on the worlds of space. Okay? So not in this life, anyway.
The justice system is set up for justice here. I mean, it may be a...
No, the justice system here is set up for lawyers.
Well, I work with lawyers, you know,
I know.
there are some really, you know, the laws are
Yeah, if you're looking for justice in our legal system, you're looking for the wrong thing. All we have in our legal system is compensation for injury. That's it. And that's both social, physical, mental, the whole 9 yards. Even divorce, you know, it's all set up for lawyers. You know. It works, the system works for us right now, but it's not a justice-based thing. There's this big ideal that judges give out justice, and that's not the way it works.
well, I see it as an evolutionary thing. You
It
know,
is.
It's evolving. There's some that are very conscientious. And
They
very
are, and they
committed.
follow the rules of the game for that age, basically.
Right.
You know. All right. I think Millie, you're up.
Primitive man assigned all phenomena to a person. In case of death, the savage asked not what killed him, but who. Accidental murder was not therefore recognized, and in the punishment of crime, the motive of the criminal was wholly disregarded. Judgment was rendered in order in accordance with the injury done.
The act, right? Whatever it was. All right.
In the earliest primitive society, public opinion operated directly. Officers of law were not needed. There was no privacy in primitive life. A man's neighbors were responsible for his conduct. Therefore, their right to pry into his personal affairs. Society was regulated on the theory that the group membership should have an interest in and some degree of control over the behavior of each individual.
So this was a busybody paradise, right?
Those
Everybody knew what everybody was doing all the time.
was like a little town earthquake.
Me too. It's like a family member or something too.
Yeah.
It was very early believed that ghosts administered justice through the medicine men and priests. This constituted these orders the first crime detectors and officers of the law. Their early methods of detecting crime consisted in conducting ordeals of poison, fire, and pain. These savage ordeals were nothing more than crude techniques of arbitration. They did not necessarily settle a dispute justly. For example, when poison was administered, if the accused vomited, he was innocent.
Reassuring. The Old Testament records one of these ordeals a marital guilt test. If a man suspected his wife of being untrue to him, he took her to the priest and stated his suspicions, after which the priest would prepare a concoction consisting of holy water and sweepings from the temple floor. How did the water get holy like that, right? After due ceremony, including threatening curses, the accused wife was made to drink the nasty potion. If she was guilty, the water that caused the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thighs shall rot, and the woman shall be cursed among her people. If by chance any woman could gaff this filthy drop and not show symptoms of physical illness, she was acquitted of the charge by her jealous husband.
Then her jealous husband died.
Yes.
He got killed accidentally. Jeez.
Good old Testament. All right. Millie?
These atrocious methods of crime detection were practiced by almost all the evolving tribes at one time or another, dueling in the modern survival of the trial by ordeal.
Whoever dies with the guilty party. Run.
It is not to be wondered that the Hebrews and other semi-civilized tribes practiced such primitive techniques of justice administration 3,000 years ago. But it is most amazing that thinking men would subsequently retain such a relic of barbarianism within the pages of a collection of sacred writing. Reflective thinking should make it clear that no divine being ever gave mortal man such unfair instructions regarding the detection and
Adjudication.
of suspected marital unfairness.
So what's he telling us? He's telling us that the Old Testament is definitely fallible, right? It's not perfect. And people don't want to hear that, right? They think every word is true. Right? Sweet.
Society early adopted the paying back attitude of retaliation, an eye for an eye, a life for a life. The evolving tribes all recognized the right of blood vengeance. Vengeance became the aim of primitive life, but religion has since greatly modified these early tribal practices. The teachers of revealed religion have always proclaimed, "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord." Vengeance killing in early times was not altogether unlike present-day murders under the pretense of the unwritten law.
Same principle, right? You go out and kill somebody because you think you've been wronged. That's just as bad, right? Suicide was a common mode of retaliation. If one were unable to avenge himself in life, he died entertaining the belief that, as a ghost, he could return and visit wrath upon his enemy. And since this belief was very general, the threat of suicide on the enemy's doorstep was usually sufficient to bring him to terms. Boy, we're stupid humans, aren't we? Primitive man did not hold life very dear. Suicide over trifles was common, but the teachings of the Dalmatians greatly lessened this custom. While in more recent time, leisure, comforts, religion, and philosophy had united to make life sweeter and more desirable. Hunger strikes are, however, a modern analog of this old-time method of retaliation.
That's what
If
Gandhi
you
did.
don't do it, I'll want to eat. Like a kid throwing a temper tantrum. Really?
One of the earliest formulations of advanced tribal law had to do with the taking over of the blood feud as a tribal affair. But strange to relate, even then a man could kill his wife without punishment, provided he had fully paid for her. The Eskimos of today, however, still leave the penalty for a crime, even for murder, to be decreed and administered by the family wronged.
Boy, women have gotten taken advantage of so much down through the centuries, haven't they? You know, it says here a man could kill his wife if he paid for her. You know, what a ridiculous thing. Who came up with that?
Yeah, and then when women's rights came out, it's like everybody just thought those women were just horrible women
Yeah,
because they were standing
were-
up for their rights.
Yeah, and with the same rights as men, yeah. Rodney, would you take the
Yeah, you know, as far as the statement about the Eskimos, it's not that way anymore.
No, this was
Well,
1934, so it may have been back then, but no
Yeah,
longer.
back then, definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, another advance was the imposition of fines for taboo violations, the provision of penalty. These fines
Constitution.
constituted the first public revenue. The practice of paying blood money also came into vogue as a substitute for blood vengeance. Such damages were usually paid in women or cattle. It was a long time before actual fines, monetary compensation, were assisted,
Assessed.
as punishment for crime. And since the idea of punishment was essentially compensation, everything, including human life, eventually came to have a price which could be paid as damages. The Hebrews were the first to abolish the practice of paying blood money. Moses taught that they should, quote, take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death. He shall surely be put to death.
Well, it's a good thing things change, because, you know, in this society, if we ran a red light, somebody would try to give away his wife for a fine, wouldn't he?
I think that's fine.
Huh? You don't think that's right? Go down to the courthouse and say, here are my children, this is my payment.
Justice was thus first meted out by meted out by the family, then by the clan, and later on by the tribe. The administration of true justice dates from the taking of revenge from private and kin groups and lodging it in the hands of the social group of the state.
This is how our courts got started. Punishment by burning alive was once a common practice. It was recognized by many ancient rulers, including Hammurabi and Moses, later directing that many crimes, particularly those of grave sex nature, should be punished by burning at the stake. If the daughter of a priest or other leading citizen turned to public prostitution, it was the Hebrew custom to burn her alive. Now, if you first read that, you'd think it was in retaliation for doing something bad to a woman. But it's just the opposite. If the woman turned to prostitution, then they would burn her alive. Again,
What about the men that
abuse
partake
of
of
women, and that's what this is. What about the what?
the men that are involved in that?
Oh, they get away scot-free.
Right.
Yeah. Billy, I think you're up.
Treason, the selling out or betrayal of one's tribal associations, was the first capital crime. Cattle stealing was universally punished by summary death, and even recently horse stealing has been similarly punished. But as time passed, it was learned that the severity of the punishment was not so valuable a deterrent to crime as it was its certainty and swiftness.
They're talking about the horse stealing. They're talking about the West. You know how they would hang people for stealing horses in the West, because you did not have a horse out in some of those large areas. That was, you know, equivalent of murder. You know,
Really,
Rodney.
that was like your father.
Yeah, it was.
When society fails to punish crimes, group resentment usually asserts itself as next wrong. The provision of sanctuary was a means of escaping the sudden group anger. Lynching and ruling represent the unwillingness of the individual to surrender private redress to the state.
11. Laws and courts. It is just as difficult to draw sharp distinctions between wars and laws as to indicate exactly when, at the dawning, night is succeeded by day. Wars are laws and police regulations in the making. When long established, the undefined wars tend to crystallize into precise laws, concrete regulations, and well-defined social conventions.
Okay, so the mores that develop over time eventually turn into our laws. The law is always at first negative and prohibitive. In advancing civilizations, it becomes increasingly positive and directive. Early society operated negatively, granting the individual the right to live by imposing upon all others the command, "You shall not kill." Every grant of rights or liberties to the individual involves curtailment of the liberties of all others, and this is affected by the taboo, primitive law. The whole idea of the taboo is inherently negative, for primitive society was wholly negative in its organization and the early administration of justice, consisting in the enforcement of the taboos. But originally these laws applied only to fellow tribesmen, as is illustrated by the later day Hebrews, who had a different code of ethics for dealing with the Gentiles. Miller.
The oath originated in the days of Dalmatia in an effort to render testimony more truthful. Such oaths consisted in pronouncing a curse upon oneself. Formerly, no individual would testify against his native group.
They'd curse himself if he lied, right?
Crime was an assault upon the tribal morals. Sin was the transgression of those taboos which enjoyed God's sanction, and that there was long confusion due to the failure to segregate crime and sin.
Okay, can y'all imagine this? Why do you think they came up with this kind of concept of ghost sanction? Remember in Dalmatia, you had the midwives, right? And they would teach the people in Dalmatia that there was unseen beings there, that lived there, right? And so that it's a natural step that these legends would eventually turn into what? Ghosts, right? So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Self-interest established the taboo on killing, society sanctioned it as traditional mores, while religion consecrated the custom as moral law. And thus did all three conspire in rendering human life more safe and sacred. Society could not have held together during the early times had not rights had the sanction of religion. Superstition was the moral and social police force of the long evolutionary ages. The ancients all claimed that their olden laws, the taboos, had been given to their ancestors by the gods. That's power.
Yeah, that's power.
God told me to do it, so you better listen.
Okay, law is codified record of long human experience. This is where our laws today come from, right? Public opinion crystallized and legalized. The mores were the raw material of accumulating experience out of which later ruling minds formulated the written laws. The ancient judge had no laws. When he handed down decisions, he simply said, "It is the custom." Right? So the customs become laws. Really?
Reference to
Precedent.
reference to precedent in court decisions represents the effort of judges to adapt written laws to the changing conditions of society. This provides for progressive adaptation to altering social conditions combined with the impressiveness of traditional continuity.
Rodney,
Progressive adaptation to altering social conditions. I suppose our laws do that.
yeah, they do. And they change with what the judges feel is precedent of the day, right?
Progressive adaptation.
That's right. And really, if you
It's
think
it's the law for a black and a white to get married.
what
The
was that?
altered social conditions change that law.
Right, right. It has
That's just
changed.
one instance. That's how it works.
That's how it works. And really, if you think about it, much of what the judges do, they're just mediators, right? In many cases. So, Rodney, would you take the next of the four?
Okay. Property disputes were handled in many ways, such as, one, by destroying the disputed property.
That'll take care of it.
That's it, yeah, that'll do it.
2, by force. The contestants fought it out. 3, by arbitration. A third party decided. 4, by appeal to the elder, later to the courts.
Interesting. Right?
The first courts were regulated fistic encounters. The judges were merely umpires or referees.
They were referees for fistfights.
Oh, fistic, okay.
Yeah.
They saw to it that the fight was carried on according to approved rules. On entering a court combat, each party made a deposit with the judge to pay the costs and fines after one had been defeated by the other. Might was still right. Later on, verbal arguments were substituted for physical blows.
Some of these attorneys, I wish they'd stood up at that one. Okay, the whole idea of primitive justice was not so much to be fair as to dispose of the contest and thus preventing public disorder and private violence. The primitive man did not so much resist that what would now be regarded as injustice. It was taken for granted that those who had power would use it selfishly. Nevertheless, the status of any civilization may be very accurately determined by the thoroughness and equity of its courts and by the integrity of its judges. Okay. Millie.
12. Allocation of civil authority. The great struggle in the evolution of government has occurred has concerned the concentration of power. The great struggle of evolution of government has concerned the concentration of power. I don't understand that sentence. The universe administrators have learned from experience that the evolutionary people on the inhabited worlds are best regulated by the representative type of civil government when there is maintained proper balance of power between the well-coordinated executive, legislative, and judicial branches.
Okay, this paragraph is so important, and it concerns what Millie says she didn't understand, okay? And that is this. The government of today, okay, is evolving, and it concerns who has the power and control of the world. Okay, that's what they're talking, the concentration of power. And probably the reason that the Urantia book was given to the United States over all other countries was the very last sentence in this paragraph. And that is the best government is a proper ordinated executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and that's what kind of government we have in this country. Okay, we have an executive branch, that's the president. Then we have the legislative, and that's the Congress and the House, right? And then we have the judicial branches, which is the court system, right? So that's probably, and that is the best representative. What are they talking about representative? Representative government is government, people in government that are elected in their position by the people. Okay, and that's the kind of government we have here in the United States. Okay, and that's probably why we were given the Urantia book right off the bat. Okay, because we have that kind of government. Now, no matter what you say about the government and who's in power at the time and all that, we still have a system that works. And we have to respect the fact that we have a system that works. And it sometimes doesn't work as well as we think it should, but it does work, right? So this is still the best country to live in the world. I don't care what anybody says, right? And that's my little speech for tonight about that.
So Roger, the universe government is similar.
It's exactly, it is, we have almost a carbon copy of the universe government that we use today, right? Because why? It represents the individuals and the people, right? We elect those, we choose those who govern us, basically, right? And that's what we're fixing to do again, coming up with this election. I don't care if you don't like anybody that's running, you still have a choice, and that's what makes the difference, right? You have the choice to make a choice. Okay. Who's that,
Playing
Rob?
difference between Satan and Lucifer.
That's right.
Okay. While primitive authority was based on strength, physical power, the ideal government is the representative system wherein leadership is based on ability. But in the days of barbarism, there was entirely too much war to permit representative government to function effectively. In the long struggle between division of authority and unity of command, the director won.
The dictator.
The dictator won. The early and diffused powers of the primitive council of elders were gradually concentrated in the person of the absolute monarch. After the arrival of real kings, the groups of elders persisted as quasi-legislative judicial advisory bodies. Later on, legislators of coordinate status made their appearance, and eventually Supreme Courts of adjudication were established separate from the legislature.
And this is the process we went through to get where we are today, right?
The king was the executor of the wars, the original or unwritten law. Later, he enforced the legislative enactments, the crystallization of public opinion. A popular assembly as an expression of public opinion, though slow in appearing, marked a great social advance.
Well, we still have kings and queens in Europe, right? The early kings were greatly restricted by the Moors, by tradition or public opinion. In recent times, some Eurasian nations have codified these Moors into a documentary basis for government.
Eurasian mortals are entitled to liberty. They should create their system of government. They should adopt their constitutions or other charters of civil authority and administrative procedure. And having done this, they should elect their most competent and worthy fellows as chief executives. For representatives in the legislative branch, they should elect only those who are qualified intellectually and morally to fulfill such a sacred responsibility. As judges of their high and supreme tribunals, only those who are endowed with natural ability and who have been made wise by replete experience should be chosen.
All right, that's an outline for our officials, isn't it?
Oh, if we could only do that today.
Yes, really. Rodney?
If men would maintain their freedom, they must, after having chosen their charter of liberty, provide for its wise, intelligent, and fearless interpretation to the end that there may be prevented the following. I'll go ahead and read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it if you want to, Rod.
One, usurpation of unwarranted power by either the executive or legislative branches. 2, machinations of ignorant and superstitious agitators. 3, retardation of scientific progress. 4, stalemate of the dominant of mediocrity. 5, domination by vicious minority.
And we struggle with all of these even today.
6, control by ambition and clever would-be dictator. 7, disastrous disruption of the planet. 8,
Exploitation.
by the unscrupulous. 9, taxation, enslavement of the citizenry of the state, and failure of social and economic fairness. 11. Union of church and state. 12. Loss of personal liberty.
These are the purposes and aims of constitutional tribunals acting as governors upon the engines of representative government on an evolutionary world.
These are the things we struggle with constantly, right? Mankind's struggle to perfect government on Urantia has to do with perfecting channels of administration and adapting them to ever-changing current needs with improving power distribution within government, and then with selecting such administrative leaders as are truly wise. While there are a divine and ideal form of government, such cannot be revealed but must be slowly and laboriously discovered by men and women of each planet throughout the universes of time and space. Presented by Melchizedek of Nebula. Okay, so say a little prayer and we'll close out for the night. Next time we will go through the development of the state. I'm going to skip a week this week. I'll talk to y'all when we stop the video. Let's say a quick prayer to close. Millie, would you like to pray for us tonight?
Yes, thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time we've had together. We hope that you will open our hearts and our minds and our brains, that we can take in what you've put down here, and that we can understand these words and apply them, particularly now in our own situation with our own government coming up to elections. Help us take all of this in and use it as we make our choices in the polling booth. We thank you for this advice. We thank you in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us at home. Please go see us again.
It's so hard to listen to those people and decide which ones are
I
moral.